Hi designers, I'm Anna from V.Mora, and today I am taking over Makers Row to do a live event about working with your manufacturers. So before I get started really fast, I'm just going to pin who I am and what we're doing today. Let me pin this. All right. There we go. So we are, you guys all know Makers Row. I wish there was a way I could do this without, I guess I'd have to be that high for comments not to be in my face. Anyways, so we are doing Makers Row live events to promote, if you guys don't know Makers Row, it's a platform that has a ton of vendors, manufacturers, where you can get fabrics, elastic, companies to help with patterns, sample making. So it's a platform that you can be a member of. I believe it's, I shouldn't say, I think it's $49 a month. That could be wrong. Sorry, I shouldn't have said that. You can check on Makers Row how much their monthly subscription is, but you're a monthly member and then you have access to all of their platforms and you're able to talk to and connect with other factories, other people to help with pattern samples, all of the good stuff. So if you're not on Makers Row, you should be on Makers Row. And then Makers Row is launching a platform called Embark Live, which is going to be a platform with all the experts from accounting to legal to people like me to social media, things like that. So it'll be video content. You'll be able to connect with professionals and just get advice, things that new designers need. That's launching in June, but you can join the wait list. So I have put the sign up. Oops, sorry, I just unpinned it. Gonna do it again. It's sign up at Embark Live. And that is who I am, and you can reach me through Makers Row. It's makersrow.com/V-Mora. And you can send me a message. I offer 20-minute complimentary strategy sessions, so you're interested in talking more about what we're talking about today or anything in general, just let me know. So today we're talking about working with your manufacturers and tips to help that relationship. That working with your factory is the most important relationship that you're gonna have. So that is, it's really like make or break, because you need a production, you need a perfect production, you need it on time, all of these things. And there's a lot of things that you can do on your end to ensure that that happens. So today I have tips for working with your manufacturers. I'll also have time for questions at the end. And again, I'm still trying. I guess I would have to be really high so that the questions aren't on my face, but we're gonna do it like this. Okay. Number one, first tip for working with your factory would be sure that you are organized on your end. It is not the factory's job to organize for you. It's your job. So there's a lot of things that you can do to organize your stuff on your end, and I'm going to talk about that today. But factories, in the most part, in my experience, not a lot of them are super organized. And it took me a while of, hey, that blue fabric, you have it. And they're like, we don't have it. And I was like, you have it. They're like, we don't. And then me and all my staff just on the floor digging through bolts and bolts of fabric to find the fabric that we're looking for us to put together these regulations on our end of how we need to organize so that the factory will be more organized for us. But so we're going to go into some of those things. What I want you to do is create a checklist. Make sure that your factory has everything they need to succeed. So that means your labels, your buttons, your snaps, linings, your interfacing. If you need special thread, create this checklist and make sure that you have all of it when you go to start your production. So a factory, they have like an assembly line, and each person on that line is responsible for one thing. And if they get to the part where sewing your label on, which is one of the first steps, and they don't have that label, they pull everything off and they put another client in line, and you'll have to wait to get back onto that line until they're done. So that significantly affects your your deadline when things need to be finished. So the first thing to do is make sure that you have everything that you need, that the factory is going to need to sew your production. Create this checklist, and before you go to get started, you run through it again. We even do that now because even though we've been doing this for years and years and years, it's easy to forget a thread or a snap or a button. So we create a checklist. We make sure everything is ready to go, and then we go to the factory. If you can bring it all to the factory in one shipment, that's the best. But again, if you're shipping fabric from Canada and you don't want to ship it to your house to ship it to there, you ship it direct, you'll want to be sure that you have that tracking number and that you know who signed for it and when it came. So like I said, with that blue fabric, what we then did was, oh, okay, well, I see your wife signed for it at 2:00 on Monday. So if you don't have it, we'll need you to pay for it so that we can order some more fabric. And when you have that proof, they find the fabric. So making sure that you're super organized and on top of everything, all of your supplies, creating this checklist, making sure that they have everything that they need to do this production will help you reach that deadline in time. Number 2 is make sure that you get manufacturing quotes. So we usually will get 3 quotes before we start a production, and the quotes are usually pretty spot on. They're not that far off. If you have one quote that's really, really low, it doesn't mean that it's a better facility. It could mean that they're not familiar with your type of product. It could mean that they're really slow on work because they don't have a high demand. But normally a really low quote doesn't mean the best quote. And the same thing with a really high quote. It doesn't mean they're going to give you the best quality. It doesn't mean they're the best factory that's available. They might be too busy. They might not want to work with a product like yours. They might not be accustomed to working with swimwear, say your swimwear, things like that. So you want to pay attention, and usually that middle range for the quoting is best. And make sure, a lot of factories too, they don't like signing contracts. If you come in with a lot of paperwork, they'll shy away, especially for a new designer. So you'll want to make sure that you get these quotes in writing, preferably the factory's writing, but make sure that you have it in writing, that they know you have it in writing, and that you hold on to that, because again, they're not very organized in my experience. So you might go to pick up your production and they'll say it was $20 a unit, but they had quoted you $16, and you'll want to make sure that you've got that in writing somewhere that you can go back to. So that is tip for getting quotes. The next one is purchase orders. So make sure you're really, really clear on what you're ordering. Put together this purchase order, and it's a PO for short, so make sure you have a PO and that it's listed all of your style numbers, the sizes you're ordering, and the colorways that you're ordering, and attach swatches if you can, and then put the quote that they have and how many total. So that's your job to create the PO. It's not the factory's job. They're not going to create a PO for you. You know, if you say, call them on the phone, you're like, make me 100 units, and then when you go to pick up, you've only got 80 units and there's nothing in writing there, that you're going to run into problems. So just make sure that, again, you organize and you've got that PO with all of that order on it. Packaging plan. This one too. New designers, in my experience, they expect a lot of their factories, and it's not always the factory's job. The factory, if you're thinking, they want to cut and they want to sew. That is it. They don't even, it's not assumed they're going to put on your hang tag. It's not assumed that they're going to package it in poly bags. It's not assumed that they're going to supply those poly bags for you. So you want to think about your packaging plan before you go into production. Do you want poly bags? Do you want hangers? How do you want this to arrive? Because if it were up to the factory, they're just going to box everything up and ship it out. And that's not going to be individually wrapped. It's not going to, all of those things. And sometimes they may, if you want them to do the fulfillment and package your goods and put on the hang tags, that might be an additional fee. So you'll also want to know that up front too. So when you're talking about quotes, remember to include your packaging plan if you're going to expect your factory to be doing any of this for you. So packaging plan, inventory list. So this is similar to the checklist, but it's a specific inventory. So if you have dropped off 100 buttons and you're doing a production of 80, you know that you're going to have 20 extra buttons at the end. Make sure that your factory knows that you know that too, because then they'll be less likely to lose those buttons. So just say, you know, if you can, if you're only making 80 units, you might only want to give 85 buttons so that they have a little extra. Sometimes things get lost, but you don't want to have a ton of inventory if you can avoid it at the factory, because like I said, it's pretty unorganized. So the more that, you know, if you order 500 yards of fabric and they only need 20, you're going to have to find somewhere to house that 480 yards of fabric, because the factory is not a storage facility. So you can work something out with them. They'll hold it for a little while if they know another production is coming, but this is all things that you need to think of beforehand. So creating an inventory list, you've got to know where everything is. And like I said, with that blue fabric of, well, so-and-so signed for it at 2 o'clock on Monday, May 5th. Please find it, or I'm going to have to reorder it and I'll need you to reimburse me because I know it's at the factory. And you can say that in a kind way, and they'll know that you are organized and that they'll have to find the fabric on their end. So make sure you have this inventory list of everything that's at the factory, that you know what's delivered, when it's delivered, who signed by it, who signed for it, how many they're using for this production, how many they're going to have left. Like I said, it's not the factory's job, and the more organized you can be, the better. The next tip is perfect tech packs. Tech packs are the blueprint of everything that's in your production. So that's going to say how long your inseam is, what zipper is in each garment, what color the zipper is. So make sure that these are all perfect, because that's the written contract that you have with your factory of how your production is to come back. And then if there is something off in the specs, you can go back to them. Normally, they will prefer to fix it over redo it. So if it's fixable, they will want to fix it, then redo the entire garment. But you'll want to be as specific as you can with the tech pack. And sometimes factories will say that they don't need tech packs. And that's just because they know that then they're held accountable to those tech packs. So again, it's on you to make sure that you are all buttoned up on your end, that you're giving them I'll get to questions at the end. I see some questions. I'm just going to answer it. What is a good site for making your own tech pack? There are a few sites out there that help make tech packs, but I always suggest running through, like, tech pack design is another technical skill. So running through it with at least someone that has that skill. Maybe you'll pay them to do your first tech pack. They'll give you the template, and then you're able to reproduce that, because each garment needs different tech packs. There's different requirements per garment, and there's also different requirements per factory. So some of our factories require a very specific tech pack, and they give us the template. So you don't want to have to do this over when you find out that the tech pack you have doesn't match the facility's needs. So you'll want to talk to your factory about what that tech pack needs to look like. If they say they don't need a tech pack, then it's up to you. But V.Mora helps you make tech packs. We create tech packs. I'll teach you how to make tech packs, all of that stuff. So tech packs are really important. A perfect sew by sample. So this is also extremely important. So when they are doing the production, you'll want to stop by if you can, or have someone on your behalf stop by. And what you want to make sure is that this perfect sew by sample is hanging in the production facility so that all the sewers can use it for reference. A lot of times the sewers might not speak English, they might not see your tech pack, but if you have that perfect sample for them to be going back to, that will also help you get this perfect production. So a lot of times designers will be like, oh, well, this one's almost perfect, but this hem changed, or this color of thread changed, or this or that. And you're putting out a risk that your production is going to come back and it's not going to be perfect. So that's why I say having this perfect tech pack and having this perfect sample is the best way that your production will come back perfect. And that also is very helpful in having all the different colorways, because different colorways need different threads, need different zippers. So you'll want to take the time to have one perfect sew by in each one of the styles and colorways. that can be done. It's called a top of production. So when you go to a factory and you order 100 units of 5 different styles in 2 different colorways, you can say, do a top, which means they cut all of the fabric and they'll sew one of each style, each colorway for you to confirm before you do production. And that can work as your sew by sample if it's perfect. So you'll always want to do a top, even if it's the same production that you've done already. Maybe they have different sewers. I always just want to take everything and check everything twice. So you'll always want to do a top. And then once you have those confirmed garments of one of every style, one of every colorway, you can then use those as your examples for the production. Production check-ins, and I mentioned that a little bit about when you are in production, you'll want to stop by or have someone on your behalf stop by. But I don't remember where I heard this, but you wouldn't drop off your child at kindergarten and then pick them up at high school graduation and expect them to have grown up the way that you wanted them to. It's the same. This is your baby. This is your child. You want to make sure that you're checking in a nice way. You know, I always know what my factories like to eat. Do they like brownies? Do they like cupcakes? What kind of alcohol do they like? Do they drink Jack Daniels? Because that'll be a way you can stop by where they won't be super annoyed if you bring them snacks or treats or like go in to say hi. But you'll want to be there when they're sewing your production. You'll also need to communicate with them because a lot of times it's fast. So they might tell you that a production takes a month, but that's because they have other clients in line. It doesn't mean that your production is on the line that entire month, but that means when they go to put it on, maybe it'll just be 5 days, it's in and it's out, but you want to make sure that you know when that is so that you can stop by and say hello. Who does a perfect sew by sample? And it has to be in each color. So you have a sample maker. When you're developing your first style, you'll do a pattern and you'll do a sample before you go into production. And you want to get that sample perfect, done by your sample maker. Sometimes that's at the factory, sometimes it's not, but you'll want to have a perfect sample done by your sample maker, and then you'll use that first sample to mock up the top or the size check run, which is one of every size, before you cut the garments. So the size check run is different because that is done just one of every size. They do not cut your entire production. They just do one of every size. You confirm off on those. You check those if you can get those done in different colorways to show all the colorways available. Then you go into production. You still want to have them do a top, but you have that size check run. So size check run comes before the top, and the difference between a size check run and a top is that size check run, they're only cutting one of every size. Whereas the top of production, they're cutting all the garments. So at that point, you can't make any pattern changes because all the fabric has been cut. So I think that answers your question. All right, and this is my final tip, and excuse me, and it's to be nice. The factories, they're really your partner. They are working with you for your future success. When you're a smaller designer and let's say you're not making a huge production, they're not making a lot of money on your production. They make money on larger productions. So knowing this, you want to build a strong relationship with them and realize that they're investing in your future. They like your product, they like you, they think you're going to be successful, and even though they're not going to be making as much money on this first production run, they're investing in the future with you for your next production run being larger, for you being more profitable, and for a long-term relationship. So like I said in the beginning, the factory is the most important relationship that you're going to make. So being really kind and nice and easy to work with. Again, you can set boundaries, you can make sure you're organized, you can hold them accountable, but doing it in a professional way. You'll want to find one factory that you can rely on, that you can work with for the rest of your career. So knowing that in the beginning, being very mindful of this relationship with your factory is so important. And even if you grow out of them eventually and say you're working with a factory that does your 1,000 unit run, your 2,000 unit run, you may still want to come back to them to do a smaller run or a capsule collection. So you just you always want to be careful and mindful of all of your relationships. And I say that I think on all my seminars, but it's really important. So knowing, you know, what if they like cupcakes or brownies, and being able to bring them something, or, you know, give them thank you notes, just things like that, to make sure that they know that they're appreciated, because they are such a big part of your production. Okay, sorry, I have such a hard time reading these questions over my face. Who does the perfect sew by the factory? Oh, I got that one already. Oh, okay. Okay, well, I got that question already. So I'm going to run you guys through the tips again, and then we'll have some time for Q&A at the end. So tips for working with your factory. Number 1, be organized on your end so they can be organized on their end. Number 2, create a checklist of everything that they're going to need, and make sure that they have all of that before the clock starts on the production. If they tell you it's going to be 6 weeks, that 6 weeks doesn't happen or start until they have all the supplies. Manufacturing quotes, make sure that you're quoting out at multiple factories, that you've got all of this in writing, that you're organized, that you have this, so that when you go to pick up your production, it's on point. Also, your purchase order, what are you ordering from them? Size, color, style, all of that listed out. Quantity, price, what you'll owe them at the beginning. Normally with a new factory, it's going to be 50% to start, 50% at completion. Packaging plan, think about that and talk to them before working with your production, because it might be an additional fee. Inventory list, always know where everything is, how much you have, where it's at, how much they're using, what will be left. Perfect tech packs, make a perfect tech pack along with a perfect sew by sample. Do production check-ins, go in, say hi, see your stuff on the line, make sure to do that top of production, and finally be nice. So building this relationship with your factory is so important, and you'll want to have a relationship with them forever. So now I see some questions coming through. Are there tech pack designers you have worked with? We are tech pack designers at V.Mora. What are some of your favorites? So Catherine and Barbara are on my team. They both make tech packs. I love them the same. I like the Makers Row concept, but how do you talk to someone from Makers Row direct? Like I said, if you wanted to talk to me direct, you go to makersrow.com, and there's like a search tab. You can put V.Mora in, or you can just do the address makersrow.com/V-Mora. That'll bring you to my page, and then on my page there's a button to click to contact. So you can send me a message, or anyone a direct message on Makers Row, to talk to them about working together, or if you had questions or anything like that. So they have a way you can message direct. Is it necessary to live in the same city as your factory? Is flying back and forth the factory necessary or normal? So a lot of people, if you live in New York or California, or somewhere that there are factories nearby, then you have the luxury of being able to be there for it. And if you don't, then you can fly in, or you can find somebody on the ground that's very familiar. You teach them about your product, and they can help facilitate the check-ins and the quality checks while you're not there. Or yes, if you're in New York and your factory's in New York, maybe you'll want to see if you can stay for a few days while your factory's making the goods. So yeah, it is really important to at least be there and meet your factory, or have someone on your behalf do it for you. Okay, do you think I can find a factory that can manage silk garments in the West Coast? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And you can look on Makers Row and type in West Coast, and then start talking to factories directly. You are welcome. What's the best place to find a designer to collaborate with on a piece-by-piece basis? So by designer, you mean they're creating the designs of your garment, or patterns and samples? If you could qualify. I guess if you're looking for a designer to work on a piece-by-piece, you just have to, maybe a student looking at portfolios, going to the colleges to see, they have showings for portfolios if you're looking for a pattern or sample maker. Looking on Makers Row, V.Mora does patterns and samples on a piece-by-piece basis. Oh, there's a designer there that will collaborate. Devo Star 615. So there you go. I was gonna say Instagram too. Instagram's a good way. Cool. So do you guys? I don't know if there was any questions coming while I was talking. Do you have any other questions? Let's see. More questions. Does V.Mora cater to handbag brands? We do, absolutely. We work with handbags. Anything that is sewn. If you put it into a sewing machine, we have done it. That includes dog clothes and baby wear and bags, wallets, anything that is sewn. You are welcome. Okay, so if you guys don't have any more questions, this was super informative. If you want more information about today's live event or anything that I talked about, again, you can contact me through Makers Row. Be sure to sign up for the Embark Live waitlist. Do you guys pick up projects starting with someone else? Yes, we do. So if you've started a project with someone else, you need someone to pick up, we work with designers in any way, shape, or form. So if you have a pattern maker, you want us to help facilitate the manufacturing, absolutely. We are big on building teams, so if you have people already, we just come in and help where you need and help with, I always say that we're like the quarterback of your team, making sure everything happens at the right time, delivery dates are met, everyone knows the project has this overall, the mood board, the themes, to make sure everyone's on brand, but we help to facilitate everyone working together. If you want us to pick up a project from someone else, we can figure out where it was at, what needs to be picked up, if anything needs to be fixed, we can do pattern evaluations. So yes. What can you ask a factory to ensure they abide by all the labor standards? Yes, so they should have, every factory will have these certifications and they'll be hanging up in the factory. So you can ask to see their license, you can ask to see any certifications. So making sure that they have that visible in the factory, but they'll always have that for you. If you're looking for any special requirements, the warp, or there's other places that you can look up to see what factories are certified with those certifications. But just doing some research online for what certifications you're looking for, what's specific to your brand, and making sure that they have that. But yes, anyone should have those standards of labor laws, things like that. Okay. I hadn't already discussed that, so no worries there. Okay, perfect. Well, thank you guys so much. Contact me via Makers Row if you're interested in having that 20-minute complimentary strategy session. Okay, guys, I hope you got a lot out of today's talk on manufacturers. Just remember, it's such an important relationship, and hopefully it's going to be a lifelong relationship because you're all going to be so successful and working with these factories for years. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next Monday.